Ultimately, the topic of this chapter is this tool right here. It's new to Illustrator CS5 and it's called the Perspective Grid tool. And it does quite a good job of simplifying the process of creating a perspective drawing. It allows you to draw simple shapes in perspective. You can drag objects into a perspective grid as well. But before we go there, I want you to have a sense of what it means to create a perspective drawing. So we're going to start off with a kind of primer. And specifically in this exercise, I'm going to compare two different ways of rendering a 3D object. One is an isometric projection, and the other is a perspective projection. So I've got open this document called technicalillustration.ai. And we're seeing here a handful of elevations, that's what these are called, which are various front-on views of this object that we're trying to create. And perhaps the best elevation, the most representative, is the side view right here. So imagine you're looking directly sideways at this object. It's a kind of stair-step gadget, let's say, with a notch cut out of the back of it. Now, if you were looking directly down on this object, it would look like the top elevation, also known as the plan view. And so the tops of the steps are rendered out in different shades of brown. If you were to look directly at the front of these steps, you would see this colorful pattern here. And then if you were to turn the steps around so you could see the back of the steps, you would see this pink and the notch is rendered in purple. Now, I just show you these so that you can get a sense of how this object is put together. But also, this is the way the pros work. If you're actually creating a technical documentation of a product, then you start off with these elevations, and then you build either an isometric or a perspective version of that object. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on, here inside the Layers panel, I'm going to turn on the isometric layer. And this is the object rendered out. So we're seeing the top of the stairs, we're seeing the front of the stairs, we're also seeing the side of this thing. However, we're not seeing the rear. And unless you're going to actually see that rear, you don't necessarily need to create that elevation, although it can be helpful. And in our case, we're communicating here that we're using different colors. However, it's no more absolutely necessary than, say, the bottom of the object or the other side. So those faces are not visible in these projections here. Now, when you're creating an isometric projection, you're creating a kind of SimCity view of the object. That is, there is no perspective. The sides do not get smaller as they decline into the distance. Instead, this edge of the stair and this edge of the stair are exactly the same size. So ultimately, each one of the path outlines is skewed into alignment. Now, an isometric projection is a very specific standard. Notice that every single one of these straight segments intersects each other at a 120-degree angle. So we're starting off with a vertical segment, then we have one that's rotated 120 degrees, another 120 degrees, and then we're back. And that's a very specific discipline. Before we see a perspective version of this object, I'd like to show you how you assemble an isometric projection in the first place. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my core objects layer right here, again inside the Layers panel. And this is all we need, this side view, and then one of the tops of the steps and one of the fronts as well. And I'm going to go ahead and select the side view, and I'm going to grab a tool that we haven't spent much time with in this series. It's available from the Scale Tool flyout menu, and it's the Shear tool right here. And what it allows you to do is slant objects. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that Shear tool, and I'm going to Alt-click or Option-click at this corner. And I'm going to set the axis to vertical so that we're skewing along a vertical axis, up and down, that is to say. And I'm going to set that shear angle to 30 degrees, which allows us to get this exact object right there. So having done that, I'll go ahead and click OK. And now I'll go ahead and press the V key to switch back to my black arrow tool and select this object here, the orange object, the front of the step. And I'll drag it down so that it snaps into alignment with the bottom of the side view there. And I'll switch back to my shear tool, and then I'll Alt or Option click at this bottom left corner once again. And it's going to go completely the wrong direction because it's following my last maneuver. What I need to do, though, is just change that shear angle from 30 degrees to negative 30 degrees, and I'll press the Tab key. And we end up getting that effect. Of course, I have the preview checkbox turned on, as by default. I'll go ahead and click OK. And now it's a matter of taking this object right there. I switch back to my black arrow tool, and I'll go ahead and drag it into alignment with the next step up so that I get a snap. You can see that my cursor is changing to the white arrowhead. And then I'll press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac in order to duplicate the face of the step. Then I'll just press Control D or Command D on the Mac a couple of times in a row in order to complete the face of the steps. So that's all there is to that. Now this guy's a little more complicated. The top of the step, I'm going to go ahead and grab it and snap it into alignment with this intersection right there. And then I'll go back to my shear tool and I'll Alt-click or Option-click on that snapped point. And I'll set the shear angle once again to 30 degrees, like so. Make sure that the axis is still set to vertical. Press the Tab key, and you end up getting this effect right there. Click OK. Now, I suppose at this point there's a way to shear this into alignment with the other objects. But the easiest thing to do is just grab your white arrow tool, and I'm going to click off of the path outline in order to deselect it, and then I'll select both of those top points. So click on one, shift-click on the other. If you're having a problem selecting the object, you can go ahead and lock down your elevations layer if you like. And then I just went and deselected a point, so I'll shift-click on the other point to select it as well, and then just drag it down and snap it into alignment. That's all there is to that one. Now go back to your black arrow tool, which you can get by pressing the V key, of course. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this object to select it, drag it down like so it snaps into alignment. Press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac and drop it in order to clone it. And then press Control D or Command D on the Mac a couple of times in a row in order to finish out the top of the steps. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and grab this point here, snap it into alignment with the back of the steps, and press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac in order to clone it. And I need to send that object to the back of the stack, so I'll just right-click inside my illustration window, choose Arrange, and then choose Send to Back, or I could press that keyboard shortcut, Control-Shift left bracket, Command-Shift left bracket on the Mac. All right, now let's go ahead and finish things off. I believe my stroke is currently active, so I'm going to press the X key to make my fill active. And then I'll go ahead and select these two top steps right there and fill them with the next darker shade of brown. And I'll go ahead and grab this step face and fill it with blue, and the top step face, and I'll fill it with yellow. And all I'm doing is just matching my elevations so that I get the right effect. And now I'm going to select everything by marqueing them with the black arrow tool. And I'll go ahead and group them together by going up to the Object menu, choosing the Group command. Or you can press Control-G, Command-G on the Mac. Then go over to your Appearance panel, because you'll notice that my isometric projection has a thicker outline around the entire thing, which is something of a standard, by the way. You don't have to do that, but it's a very common practice. So I'll go to the Appearance panel and I'll add a stroke by clicking this bottom left icon. I could also press Control-Alt/, or Command-Option/ on the Mac. I'll go ahead and increase that stroke value to 6 points. That covers up everything, looks terrible, so I'll go ahead and drag it below contents like so. And then finally, I'll click on stroke, because if you take a close look here, we're getting all these miter joints, which is completely ruining the effect. So I'll click on the word stroke there in the Appearance panel, and I'll set the corner to round join. And that completes the effect, and that's all there is to it. So that's how you create an isometric projection in Illustrator. In the next exercise, I'll introduce you to a perspective projection.